I'm Andy, I'm a hill-going member of Buxton Mountain Rescue Team. I'm here this morning to talk to you about the Bell tangent stretcher, which I'm holding here, and I'm ably assisted by my glamorous assistant Rick. So the two halves of the tangent stretcher, they weigh 12 kilograms each, and they're fitted with a rucksack style harness, which enables them to be carried by team members onto the hill comfortably on their backs. Bear in mind we also have to carry our own rucksack hooked over the top of this stretcher as we go onto the hill. Having arrived at the casualty site, what we need to do is to put the stretcher together. So I'll help Rick take it off. This is the foot part of the stretcher, so we'll put that onto the ground and Rick's going to hold that up. This is the head of the stretcher, and I can tell that because it's got the head guard part of the stretcher here. So we're going to fit the two halves together. We need to be careful that we don't trap any fingers whilst we're doing this. So Rick's now going to hold that up whilst I go through the motions of locking the two halves together with these locking pins and wing nuts. There are 4 of these, 2 on each side. And it always pays in the heat of an incident to make sure that you've got all 4 connected before getting the stretcher to work. So having put them all on, I'll just go through it 1, 2, 3 and 4 just to confirm I've got all 4 and they're all in the correct position. Having lowered the stretcher down into the horizontal, we're now going to prepare it for a team to carry a casualty along. The stretcher has handles, which is the first thing we're going to put into position ready to carry our casualty. So 4 handles in place. The next thing we're going to look at is the head guard. So the head guard does what it sounds like. It protects the head of our casualty. Release pins here and here allow the head guard to come up. The pins back in. Like that. Okay, depending on the condition that your casualty is in as to whether you might put this up before or after the casualty's on the stretcher. If you've got C-spine problems or something like that, and you want to be careful around the casualty's head and neck, then you might place him on the bed of the stretcher and then subsequently put the head guard up over the top. But if the casualty's, for example, got a lower leg injury, then working their way into this head guard isn't such much of a problem, so you might put the head guard up first. And what it's there for is to protect the casualty from falling rocks or things like that that might be knocked down onto them. But it also is a little bit of a weather protection, so if it's raining and the head's well up inside of here, it does stop rain from falling onto the face of the casualty. We have webbing straps all the way up and down the bed of the stretcher, which in order to prepare it for a casualty to go in position, we need to release. So the bed of the stretcher is now prepared. As you can see, it's a stainless steel frame, so it's efficient for the job. It's not very comfortable, however, for our casualties on their back. So we'll always put something onto the bed of the stretcher in order to at least make them more comfortable. So in this case, I'm just going to put a casualty bag on here, like a big sleeping bag, just to keep our casualty comfortable for this demonstration. Now we've got a very cooperative casualty now. He's going to fit himself into this stretcher, and he has a matching Mac.
Here we go, be gentle with me.
Okay, having fitted him to the stretcher, we've now got to secure him in place. And we do that with these webbing straps. Important at this stage, this strap doesn't really want to go across his face or neck, so we tend to cross the top two straps over to give a diagonal securing at this position. The other thing that these are useful for, you've seen the videos of the Entonox and the oxygen cylinder. That cylinder can be sequestered onto the stretcher here and then incorporated within the strapping in order to keep that drug or oxygen safely and securely attached to the stretcher so that we can transport our casualty and keep the Entonox or oxygen supply going at the same time. He's all comfortable, snug as a bug and ready to be transported to wherever we're going. Now, as you can see, the stretcher is, well, Delvin's about 6 foot. We've got a couple of feet either end, so you're looking at 8 foot length of stretcher, a couple of feet wide as well. Delvin, probably, let's say, a nominal weight of 100 kilos. Our stretcher, 24 kilos for the two halves, so 125 kilos roughly for all that kit. In this circumstance, if we were going to carry him with a stretcher just like this, we would need 8 people, 1 in the handrails at front and rear, and 3 on each side of the stretcher. If we're working on a good footpath or a good levelish grassy surface, then we can add a wheel to the rig. Here is our wheel, and what we would do is the team would lift the stretcher up, the wheel be slid underneath, and it's simply velcroed onto the bottom of the stretcher. It turns the stretcher into what is effectively a large wheelbarrow. This means we can drop off comfortably drop off 2 people, and it takes the stretcher carry down to just 6 people. In extremis, so if we're going over, for example, a narrow bridge where we can't have people at the sides, it means that the stretcher is manageable for short periods over narrow spaces with just 2 people, 1 at the front and 1 at the back. So the wheel is a very useful addition to our stretcher. The other things that we have with the stretcher to assist in carrying it are simple slings, carrying straps that go onto the 4 corners of the stretcher, and if we're carrying in the middle, we'd put straps into the middle as well, and these are simply lark's footed onto the stretcher frame. Like that. So all 4 corners and some in the middle as well if necessary. What we will do is to make sure that the tape goes behind the carrier up over the shoulder like that, so that it goes down the middle of their back. So this is good for lifting. So you'll kneel down, take firm hold of the stretcher itself, and this becomes locked in, and then on the call to lift, you can lift together, and it shares the weight between your hand and your shoulder, and means that you can carry the stretcher without injuring yourself. On the bottom of the stretcher, there are effectively 2 rails which act the same as a toboggan's rails, and the stretcher can be dragged along not only through snow. Grass is perfectly good for sledging a stretcher. If we are sledging, however, we wouldn't have the handles in position because they have a tendency to dig into the ground or into tussocks and such like. This stretcher is, as I said, is the Bell tangent stretcher. The Bell stretcher design is getting on for 50 years old now. It was patented in 1972 by Peter Bell, who was a team member of Ambleside and Langdale Mountain Rescue Team. This stretcher is in wide use across England and Wales. The Scots tend to have their own way of doing things, but this stretcher provides us with a very stable platform. It's comfortable for the casualty. It's compatible with use with the Coastguard helicopter for winching and combining our rescues with the Coastguard. So we have a strap set up that we can put onto the stretcher, and the S92 helicopter can winch and take the stretcher and the casualty away to hospital much quicker than we could get them there. The stretcher is also used with that same rig together with our rope system on vertical rescues on crag faces, and again it makes a very stable platform. We can place our casualty onto this stretcher and we can actually climb onto the stretcher with the casualty to administer first aid if it's necessary, because the platform is that secure and stable. It's also useful for vertical rescues on crags and cliffs. Combine it with our strap system, it provides a very stable platform. We can lower the stretcher down the cliff face or raise it up from the bottom. The rescuer can climb onto the stretcher with the casualty to administer first aid where necessary. The stretcher has a regular servicing done by Lion Equipment. As I said, it's a 50-year-old design. The stretchers are pretty indestructible. However, the webbing straps and so on, they need checking and replacing on a regular basis. And then the connections and fixings need to be tested, and the stretchers go away on a regular rotational basis to have that test done by Lion Equipment. Okay, that's it. So if you've enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to our channel, and hope you enjoy watching the other films that we've produced. Thank you very much.